It's Friday, my friends, and normally on the headlines show we start with a warm good morning, but today we're in a state of mourning. CNN Plus has left the game. They came into this world March 29th, 2022, and they're shutting down on April 30th. And so we are going to spend a little bit of time understanding what happened here. We can see we have some ghosts of haunting yesteryear flying around the gravestone. We've got Jake Tapper, Chris Wallace, who abandoned Fox News and basically his entire audience to go over and join the enemy, making him the centerpiece of CNN Plus, which doesn't exist anymore. Anderson Cooper and Brian Stelter, all ghosts of CNN past. And what is happening here? What went wrong? Well, let's get some background from the story. Warner Bros. Discovery, according to Breitbart, saying that they are going to be canceling CNN Plus 20 days after launch, 23 days after the announcement came out. And they just didn't get any subscribers. Nobody wanted to watch them or pay for additional content. Nobody was watching CNN in the first place. Warner Bros. Announced they're shutting it down after CNN announced they had just 10,000 daily views, according to reports, which is not a lot of views. The move comes after CNN was acquired by the parent company. Spokespersons for CNN, Warner Bros. Came out. Gabe could not be reached for comment, but the decision puts an end to a venture that people familiar with the matter say rankled the new CEO of Warner Bros. And Discovery from the start. Chris Lick, the incoming CEO of CNN, sent a memo out to staffers on Thursday morning, that would have been yesterday, about an important meeting to be held at noon. And it's at that time expected to inform employees about the decision. Over on Twitter, we've got a couple people. CNN Plus brought a bunch of people over, on-air personalities. We had Chris Wallace, formerly from Fox, Jake Tapper, Don Lemon, Anderson Cooper. In the last few days, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was interviewed by Wallace in a likely effort to boost the ratings, and it didn't work, obviously. Many people upset about this. Former president of CNN, Zucker, developed CNN Plus to rival Fox News. Fox News has their own version of a streaming service, but big scandal forced him to leave, and CNN's having to adjust. CNBC's reporting the same thing. They're going to shut down April 30, just 1 month after launch. They spoke to hundreds of CNN Plus staffers on Thursday, explained the decision. The CNN Plus head, Andrew Morse, is leaving the company, so didn't go well for him. Fox News, of course, having a ton of fun with this. They are the people behind this graphic that we started the headlines with. They posted this saying CNN streaming service shutting down just weeks into launch, failing to attract viewers. So they posted this April 21st, 9:45 p.m. Tucker similarly having fun, noting that CNN is now the home to Chris Wallace.
I'm going to go tonight, the involuntary retirement of Mike Wallace's son. Boo-hoo, no more lectures on TV.
Yeah, so boo-hoo, no more lectures on TV, which is something that Chris Wallace did all the time, right? He would bring out candidates and he would sort of ask them a question after a big, long lecture. But I don't know that that's very different or abnormal from any other so-called journalist or people in the media these days. It's kind of the standard operating procedure. You know, it's not really about questions and prying in and opening up the box to see what's going on in there. It's largely about making political statements so that they can get their own talk show or whatever. And so Tucker, of course, commenting and enjoying a little bit of Schadenfreude, or however you say it.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, there you go. You have here, it says Schadenfreude is a combination of German nouns, Schaden meaning damage and harm, and Freude meaning joy, saying enjoyment obtained from the troubles of others. So I think Fox News and many others are having fun with that. And they should, because CNN does this all the time. CNN and many people on the left get gleeful every time there's a story about some new right-wing conservative Trump effort failing. They have been doing cartwheels making fun of Trump and Truth Social. Trump, therefore, is now reacting to CNN. Posted this April 21st, says, congratulations to CNN Plus on their decision to immediately fold for a lack of ratings or viewers in any way, shape, or form. It was like an empty desert out there, despite spending hundreds of millions of dollars and the hiring of low-rated Chris Wallace, a man who tried so hard to be his father, Mike, but lacked the talent and whatever is necessary to be a star. In any event, it's just one more piece of CNN and fake news that we don't have to bother with anymore, which is true. I think that's True, right? The companies, the corporations, the journalists that do terrible jobs should go away. And that includes anybody on Fox or anybody on the right. I'm also tired of many of them for saying the same thing that they've been saying for the last 30 years, even though the whole world has changed. Getting tired of that. Saw a headline that Sean Hannity is the longest running cable news primetime host ever, and I'm pretty sure his show has not changed over the last 30 years. Here you can see that there's going to be a response to this. Well, we tried it and stuff fails, and Truth Social's garbage, so what does anybody care about Trump? And that's true right now. I mean, Truth Social is not really functional as far as I can tell, but doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. And unlike CNN, Donald Trump's not folding, apparently. You can see that over from just the news, Truth Social has just migrated over to the Rumble cloud. And this tough stuff takes time. Rumble has been building a lot of infrastructure. I've been following along, obviously very interested in this stuff. But they're saying now that all of the actual tech is being sort of moved from one server to the other, which is going to enable them to now open up the floodgates and bring a bunch of members. Explaining here, backlog of users waiting to get on the Trump platform expected to be erased quickly thanks to a partnership from two emerging platforms. Truth Social completed a migration to the massive cloud computing infrastructure on Rumble, clearing the way for millions to dive in. Partnership between the two completed this week means Truth Social will be ending its beta testing and controlled account creation and moving quickly to erase a backlog of consumers. We have Devin Nunes, the former congressman from, I think that was California, CEO now of Trump and Technology Group, which owns Truth Social, says, yesterday, Truth Social and Rumble took a major stride towards rescuing internet from the grip of the big tech tyrants. Our teams have worked tirelessly to realize this endeavor. Rumble's cloud infrastructure is second to none and will be the backbone for the restoration of free speech online and for ages to come, which is interesting. And like I said, I'm very interested in this because we have had our difficulties here on this channel and elsewhere on other platforms of being suspended and canceled, thrown off of different chat platforms and things like that. So very curious about this. We also know that Locals, which is where we have our community, is also now integrating with Rumble. There was sort of an acquisition there as well. Everybody is now identifying new servers and new infrastructure where they can host their content platforms in a way that's not going to lead to censorship, hopefully. I don't know the technical details of what Rumble's backend looks like, but hopefully it's more robust than what Parler had, which was on the back of Amazon Web Services. And this stuff takes time. And so I think that this is a good move in the right direction. Rumble, which has quickly emerged as a free speech online video rival to more heavily moderated YouTube, hailed the migration as a major milestone as Truth Social became the first significant customer to join its cloud services businesses. We are excited to partner with them, says CEO Chris Pavlovski. Providing top-notch cloud infrastructure is essential. Truth users will start to see the benefits. And Elon is also trying to take over Twitter. Dan Bongino says the traffic to the site and the show is off the chart. He's making that a mainstay of his platform. If you look at Truth Social, we continue to grow every single day, even though we just barely are through the testing phase. We continue to prove out the process and focus on our quality and reliability, says Nunes. Truth Social getting massive engagement, he's saying. So we'll continue to follow. I think I do have an account over there. And so once it starts to be a little bit more functional, we'll start posting our stuff there as well. But that's what's happening with CNN. Donald Trump's happy about it. Truth Social's making some headway. The platforms, the streaming services, the ecosystem, it's all changing. I think people saw what happened last time. They were disgusted by it, and they're wanting to seek alternative sources of news. COVID, I think, shattered a lot of the confidence in it. Ukraine shattering a lot of confidence in it. The belief in the truthiness of the media is at an all-time low, and it should be because they're liars. Jumping over to the White House, very interesting clip from Joe Biden, confusing two pretty important, gigantic national concepts. Big issues that are pending across this country. One, the border, southern border, Title 42, whether Joe Biden's changing of the rules is going to cause a new surge of migrants to come across there. And then secondarily, we have this mask problem where the Florida court came out, federal district judge said that the mask mandate imposed by the CDC was unconstitutional. Joe Biden and his administration had some time kind of kicking around concepts about whether or not they were going to appeal the actual ruling because they didn't like the ruling. They say, hey, the CDC here has limitless power and total control of everything, and we're going to fight to the death to make sure that is preserved. Joe Biden is now asked a question about both of these two concepts, something we've talked many times about here on this channel, and he conflates the two. And ordinarily you'd say, well, look, that happens from time to time. People get confused and they hear one thing and jump into another. But what we're seeing here, folks, is a continual pattern. This isn't a one-off. Joe Biden doesn't even know where he is most of the time, and he can't even answer substantive questions when he is ready to go in front of the press, prepared presumably for questions. Here's what it sounds like.
President, on Title 42, sir, are you considering delaying lifting Title 42?
On Title 42, are you considering delaying Title 42, which is the change in the rules that many people are speculating is going to cause a surge at the southern border? We're going to get there. Department of Homeland Security chief and others expressing their concerns, saying maybe this is going to cause a huge problem. Maybe we should delay the repeal of Title 42. And they're asking Joe about that. Are you considering this? Like, it's going to be a big problem here soon. Let's listen to that one more time.
President, on Title 42, sir, are you considering delaying lifting Title 42?
No, what I'm considering is continuing to hear from my
Lost it.
First of all, there's going to be an appeal.
Lost it.
By the Justice Department. Because
Separate
as a matter
issue.
of principle, we want to be able to be in a position where if in fact it is strongly concluded by the scientists that we need Title 42.
Scientists.
That we be able to do.
What? Okay, so he didn't just shift answers. Did you hear that? He didn't get asked a question about Title 42 and say, oh, I heard a mask question, and so I'm going to talk about masks. He's going back to Title 42. He's looping this all the way back around into the masks. Let's back up just a little bit. Listen, he's going to go back to, he's talking about masks, then he's going to talk about Title 42, which is immigration, not masks. Although I don't think that they have any mask mandates either down there.
Need Title 42, that we be able to do that. The scientists that we need
masks.
Title 42,
That issue.
that we be able to do that. But there has been no decision on extending Title 42.
Okay, so maybe he's trying to circle this back all the way into the CDC, saying that the CDC was responsible for some of the Title 42 restrictions, and he's going to rely on scientists about whether to repeal or remove Title 42. So we're having sort of two different conversations that are kind of overlapping with each other. CDC, as we know, has been given power and authority over everything, and they get to decide most things these days. So Joe Biden is saying, I guess, that we're going to appeal it, the mask issue, but then talking about the CDC and the relevant scientists, I think for masks, but also for Title 42. But the difference here is that they're appealing the mask mandates because they want more of that. They want more COVID protections and all of the bubble wrap that they want everybody to surround themselves with for the masks on the airplanes. But Title 42, which was another COVID protocol, they don't want that for the migrants coming across the southern border. Very strange. Now, doesn't seem like it's very consistent. Either you kind of want a bunch of COVID protocols because it's a big danger and a big threat, or not. It's sort of like they want the restrictions on the airplanes, but they don't want any powers and authority down at the southern border. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think Democrats and many people in the administration themselves are showing some concerns about this as well. We see here from Axios, a scoop. DHS chief is concerned about lifting Title 42, posted 14 hours ago by Alana Treen. This would have been on April 21st. You see here, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has privately told members of Congress he's concerned with the Biden administration's handling of its plans to lift Title 42 on May 23rd. Why it matters, private airings of Mayorkas recounted by many law people. Secretary is not only charged with protecting the border, failed, but overseeing the process of ending the Trump-era immigration control. Part of the cause of the failures. Mayorkas has also indicated a level of frustration. Spokesman said, as Secretary Mayorkas has said repeatedly, Title 42 is a public health authority, not an immigration authority, and he defers to public health experts like the scientists and all the sophisticated people who've botched, in my opinion, the response in many different domains over the last 2 years. Now saying, well, look, I'm just a Homeland Security agent. I'm just the chief. What do I know about any of this stuff? I have no opinions on this. CDC is now the ruling entity of this entire country, and so I'm just going to defer over to them. As he has repeatedly said, we anticipate an increase in migrant encounters after lifting of Title 42. Title 42, they explain down here, first issued March 2020, uses COVID pandemic as a justification for turning back migrants without the chance to seek asylum. This was sort of the wait in Mexico concept that Donald Trump implemented. And what that did was create disincentives for people to come across. If you have to wait in Mexico and you can't sort of, immediately come here and be dispersed throughout the rest of the country, that's a disincentive. There's a roadblock, an impediment to stopping people from coming in. Donald Trump knew that, used that on the back of CDC's title and their order, all sorts of other precautions and restrictions. I mean, many of us couldn't even leave our own homes, for crying out loud. And so it might make sense consistently that you sort of, if you're bounded in your home, maybe you would sort of limit what happens at your borders in your country, would be one theory on how to handle this. But Joe Biden is more concerned, apparently, with having people mask their faces up than he is about being concerned about migrants carrying COVID across the southern border. Mayorkas, the first Latino and immigrant confirmed to serve, which is incredibly important. Now this whole story has context now. Shared his wariness regarding the expected influx of migrants once the ban is lifted. In a separate conversation with other members earlier this month, he conceded there are challenges with lifting Title 42. He acknowledged his concerns in some instances. He pointed to members to the CDC, said, look, they're calling the shots. I'm totally de-balled. I've got no masculinity anymore. I just have to do whatever Rochelle Walensky tells me at the CDC. She runs stuff here. Members and their staff told Axios after Mayorkas walked them through the DHS's preparation for the potential border surge, which is coming, right? We've already been talking about this. They did not feel the administration had reached the level of preparedness needed to carry out the operation by May 23rd. 1 month from now. Some of these private conversations took place with multiple House and Senate lawmakers. Biden's inner circle started discussing this week. The decision to lift the order put this administration in a jam. Pressure is mounting from moderate Democrats, some in tough re-election fights. In Arizona, Mark Kelly's up. Border and immigration, huge issues here. They may lose a seat that they just gained. They want them to delay the repeal until there's a proper plan in place, or read other words, after the election. He's saying publicly, we've put in place a comprehensive whole of government strategy to manage the potential increase of a number of the migrants encountered at the border. Do you believe that for a minute? They've been in office for 2 years now. They haven't done so good a job at any of this. I think we have to be very mindful of the fact that we're addressing enemies, and those enemies are cartels and the smugglers, but I will not provide our plans on them. He's going to be grilled by lawmakers later this week, scheduled to appear before the House Judiciary Committee. We've got Senator Gary Peters of Michigan said he plans to hold a border hearing soon. Title 42 may need to be revisited, perhaps delayed, but Joe Biden just said that, I think he was talking about Title 42, maybe the masks, maybe the appeal. Nobody has any idea anymore, but we see that there is some concern about this. We also know that Joe Biden's popularity is in the toilet. He's now up to 52.8% disapproval numbers, according to Here 538. This number is supported by Real Clear Politics, which is showing a continual downtrend for the president. 53.8 disapprove, according to their sort of summation of the various polls. Rasmussen, Gallup, Trafalgar, we've got Reuters, Economist, all of the others saying everybody's saying he's over 50% disapproval, which is pretty bad. And if this continues on, if there's a Title 42 repeal, border surge comes back again, we've already been through this. It's like season 2 or season 3 of the border situation with these guys. It's not good. Now, the Biden people think they're doing an amazing job. They've confirmed this. Joe Biden, as we talked about yesterday, we took a look at his schedule. He was traveling yesterday. He actually had some activity, but not really for anything meaningful. He stopped at the airport to highlight critical investments. So he goes to Portland International Airport, probably on a layover before he gets over to Seattle. And he stops at the airport and they're like, all right, Joe, just can you stand here for 2 seconds and say, critical investments are going to make us stronger and more resilient. And he says, yeah, I probably can do that. They did that. They shove him back on the plane. He goes from Oregon back over to a fundraiser at the DNC in Seattle, 6:30 p.m. time local, which is way past his bedtime. So he's now traveling back on Friday, arrives back in Newcastle, Delaware tonight. He's scheduled. Got the Daily Brief today about noon his time, was traveling back all morning, delivers remarks on Earth Day, bold agenda to tackle climate crisis, and then going to be delivering remarks on actions to lower costs and give families more breathing room. So we'll see if he's able to string together a cohesive thought. He's going to call on Congress to pass his plan to lower healthcare and energy costs. So obviously none of this is going to happen, right? Congress is disconnected from him. He's going to arrive in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. But last night when he was at the event with the other Democrats, apparently this came out. RNC Research got a little bit of a recording, and they're telling us in audio from a ritzy DNC fundraiser tonight Biden says, I've done a hell of a job. It's just hard for people to understand. It's a messaging problem. It's always with these politicians. It's messaging. I'm amazing. I do amazing things. Everything I've done has been accurate and correct. But you people are just so stupid. You don't even know. You have no idea how amazing all of the lockdowns were and all of the COVID protocols and all of the continuing inflation and the wrecked economy, the turbulence, ups and downs. Everything seems problematic, but that's only because it's your perception. If you knew better, if you were more sophisticated, watched more CNN, maybe if you had signed up for CNN Plus, you'd be properly apprised, but you're not. Joe Biden says, we've done a hell of a job. Let's listen in. It's going to be, grainy, bad audio from a...
What I'm worried about now is that we've done one hell of a job. But the fact is that because things have moved so rapidly, so profoundly, it's hard for people to... Let me just give you a few statistics. But what I'm worried about now...
Yeah, it's hard. He said it's hard for people to fathom it. And then he says, let me give you some statistics. And he goes through the statistics. Now, the statistics have been entirely just manipulated, right? Because what they have said, well, they'll say something like, January 2021 or 2021, we had the most significant jobs decrease or increase in history, or we cut the budget by the most amount that's ever been done in history. And what they're doing is they're not sort of taking their numbers relative to a baseline. They're taking them relative to the COVID insanity that the entire world went through, right? Massive budget increases. So he says, okay, well, if my numbers are lower than that emergency, that makes me means I'm doing significantly better. It doesn't. It just means that your numbers are out of context. It's not relevant because you're referencing something that was abnormal as the baseline, but that's not the baseline. The baseline is everything else. So they keep doing that. They keep saying, oh, look, our economy got 1 million people employed. No, it didn't. The pandemic started to subside and people started to hire. Nothing you did anything there, but it's still something that they like to point out. And why wouldn't they? There's nothing else to point to. I mean, this is the only thing that they can do is fib the numbers a little bit. And so Joe Biden and the White House, people very concerned about this party revolt. You can see Politico's talking about this, facing a growing rebellion. On 4/22, this article came out. The White House is standing behind its decision to end the Title 42 policies. In an interview, former administration officials urged the White House to stay the course and better communicate the plan. But the border policy change come in May 23rd. So it kind of feels like a repeat of Afghanistan a little bit. Joe Biden, at no time are you going to see people jumping on helicopters out of the U.S. Embassy. And then we saw exactly that. In fact, it was worse than that. People were falling off of airplane wheel wells. So Joe Biden, he knows what he's doing. I mean, he knows where he is and how this is all functioning. We'll see what happens in May at the border. Let's jump over to locals. We've got 3 girlies in the house. Says, here's an Arizona story for you. Shout out. Says, Ukraine war. Arizona sends charity estimated $400,000 worth of supplies. I pulled this up. It's over from Fox News. April 22nd. Charity still seeks clothing and other common goods. But a Ukrainian charity received a whopping donation, $400,000 worth of tactical and defensive gear to alleviate supply shortages in the war. We have Ihor Koval, 58, born in Ukraine, later moved to America, raised a family, established the charity, and they've got some ways you can donate if you'd like to do that. Governor Doug Ducey here says, great to see local charities coming together, fighting for Ukraine. Yeah, look, Arizona's got some good people here. I know that some people on the left say that we're a bunch of right-wingers down here who are a bunch of racists and hate all sorts of weird things and all. It's not that way at all. A lot of good people here. And you can see that they're fighting for causes they believe in. 900 bulletproof vests. Good stuff. Awesome. So thank you for that. That's 3 girlies in the house. John M16 is here, shares this story, says Giuliani was on The Masked Singer and the left went bananas. I didn't look into this. Louder with Crowder. How's this? Apparently one of the judges walked off the set. They saw it was Giuliani and then, you're an insurrectionist. So I don't watch that show, but I think part of that mystery is what's captivating about it. It's like somebody's performing well, they're singing well, they're dancing well, and they pull their mask off and I can't believe that was Donald Trump behind there. He was doing cartwheels. So it's kind of, I think it's supposed to be the reveal, right? I don't know. But the judge wasn't happy about it. We've got grouchy old cat ladies here. Gerrymandering, says they all do it. And we're seeing big fights about this. Florida is passing new maps. We've got New York appeals courts passing new maps. And everybody's trying to change the rules a little bit so that they can win future elections. Got a meme says, if corrupt politicians get to pick their voters, then how are elections fair? Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, they get to decide. I don't want that demographic over there. That part of this map, they're not going to vote for me. So let's just carve it this way and around them, and we'll do some loop-de-loops over here, and we'll just continue to manipulate everything. I don't think we've sort of had a representative government in a long time in the same way that the founders envisioned. I mean, our House of Representatives was kept. We kind of have the same thing as a Senate. We kind of have two Senates, a big Senate and a small Senate. What was that? When did that happen? Oh, yeah, when they decided they didn't want to keep giving people representation. They didn't want to add in additional representatives, even though that's what the basis of a House of Representatives was. So it's more representative, not a small Senate. But so they just keep changing things so that we, the people, have less input in most of these conversations. Have another one here. This comment came in from Anonymous, says, will you look into this? It's John Sullivan case. It's sealed, I guess. I don't understand the law, but it should not be forgotten. Been watching a long time, but rarely comment. Wanted to on this case. So John Sullivan is this guy. I remember him. He was a January 6-ish type of person. Don't know if he was a legitimate insurrectionist or if he was somebody who was sort of embedded there. Remember that he sold his photos or his videos for tens of thousands of dollars. And we talked about this, very convenient. CNN and many others right after this happened paid him, I think, $35,000 for one and $35,000 for another one. Big money for his footage. And so the commenter is sharing this complaint. He was originally cited with the same J6 types of charges, restricted building, civil disorder, those types of things. Over from the court docket, we can see some recent case activity. Motion to exclude, order to continue. We've got a status conference still scheduled for May. Minute order. So some quick activity here. If we go back to last year, December 31st, motion to dismiss the case or dismiss count 1 of the superseding indictment. We have a motion by the defense to adopt relevant portions of the motion to dismiss. We've got several different motions. A minute entry took place early January. We got a stay on January 4th. On April 6th, we have a new prosecutor appearing for the United States. John Sullivan gets a response to his prior motion to dismiss by the United States government. Status conference takes place, a minute order. Status conference was actually canceled on April 20th, so that was a couple days ago. Let's see if they rescheduled it. Parties' agreement, the time until May 15th is going to be excluded. So it sounds like we now have a new status conference for May 15th. It's hereby canceled. Status conference is now going to take place on June 15th. Via video, the parties shall contact Mr. Coates. I wonder why that is. We've got orders on motions to continue. We've got a joint motion to continue. So why are they asking for all this additional time? Let's see if we can piece this together here. If we pull up the most recent motion to continue, you can see here that this was drafted on 4/17, so just a few short days ago. As set forth in the prior motion to continue, discovery was provided back on January, file sharing of a number of documents. We see February 10th, U.S. also filed a memorandum of the docket summarizing the status of the discovery. Last week, U.S. gave the defendant another extensive global discovery production. Given defense's interest in reviewing the voluminous discovery material, they want 60 days to do it. So they need reasonable times, and they've got some basis for doing that. The parties also note there are substantive motions pending before the court. We've got a motion to suppress custodial statements, so they don't want the government to be able to use things that he said when he was in custody. Motion to dismiss count 8 of the superseding indictment, void for vagueness. Supplemental motion to dismiss here. So a lot of motions, and basically they're saying two things. We need a ton of time to go through all of the discovery, which I don't doubt that's legitimate. I imagine there is a ton of it. They want 60-day continuance, waiving the time for the speedy trial. This is the assistant U.S. attorney is in agreement with the defense, so they're both saying no problem. Big fat continuances, largely because there's just a lot going on in the case. And so they want 60 days, review discovery, and then be able to prep and address some of those additional motions. As we can see, there's quite a lot of them over from court listener. So big slew of stuff. The judge basically is just giving them more time as far as we can see here. Good question, though. Back over to locals, we've got Mr. MBP's in the house, says foreign demand for U.S. Treasuries collapses just as the Fed launches QT. Collapse of the bond market is close at hand. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. Some of the financial people I follow are prognosticating some dark days ahead, and I don't doubt it for a minute. that there are consequences to all of these activities, the consequences to what they did during the pandemic that we're going to feel for many, many years. It's not over, right? All of these ebbs and flows in the supply chains, all of the deaths, literally, all of the social ills that have been created, all of the alcoholics, drug addicts, depressed people, divorces, all of the children who are 2 years behind. It's going to have massive consequences for the rest of our lives. Similarly, war with Russia, Ukraine-Russian war, huge catastrophic consequences. And we see now that Russia is sort of realigning their monetary system. We're seeing new alliances form to transfer oil and gas, all sorts of a reshuffling of the powers that be. And we're going to deal with this. The All In podcast is a great podcast. And one of the podcasters there was communicating about Ukraine, Russia, the impending doom of the global food shortage that we're all about to face. And so there's going to be a restructuring, and a lot of people are saying, not going to look good. Former LEOs here says, I see that CNN is dead and buried. Now Chris Wallace can take his dream job, which is the lead investigative reporter for the National Enquirer. Oh, CNN Plus is dead. CNN is still around, unfortunately. Mr. MVP says, here is the 2021 grand jury subpoena from special counsel. Demand records regarding the Alpha Bank Trump hoax, the purported use of the Yoda phones. Okay, so we've got a new document here on Durham. Woo, okay, so I haven't seen that one yet. We'll have to do a separate video on that. I was going to open it up right now, but we're not going to do that. Another good one from Grouchy Old Cat Lady says, instead, the staffers demand that Gates' staff provide printed or PDF form documents that could be uploaded into the record. They're talking about Democrats trying to block Republicans from being able to digitally upload Hunter Biden's laptop. That's over at the Daily Caller. Grouchy Old Cat Lady saying the move forced Gates' office to expend its own resources creating copies, even though the House rules dictate that they can be responsible for uploading record entries. So they're trying to throw any roadblock that they can. And we deal with this stuff all the time in criminal law, all the time. Prosecutors' offices, they have a history. They don't do this regularly, but they've had a history. We've battled with them over this, of making it difficult to get the evidence, right? Charging you for paper, charging you for every little, CD that they create. Excuse me, we're not going to give you that unless you give us 6 cents for this CD. All right. And it's just an annoying sort of thing that they do. And we had this situation where police would literally take their body cameras and turn them on and off, right? And they would bill you every time that they had to get a new copy of that video file. So you'd say, I need all the videos for this DUI case. And they'd say, well, our officer has 23 different video files. And he said, well, why is that? I mean, it was one DUI. Why wasn't his camera on the whole time? On, off, on, off, on, off. Then the prosecutor would turn around and say, well, we've got 23 different video files that we need to give you, and it's a $10 fee for each one of those. And you go, what? So we got to give you $230 to get the evidence back that exists in our case? And that went on for a period of time. It doesn't anymore. But extremely annoying and tedious. Of course, we're a law firm and we've got people hire us to help defend them. And then we are able to afford those fees, of course. But other people who are not able to do that, what do? They, I guess we don't get any evidence in our case. We're on our own. So you can see that these procedural types of hurdles are a gigantic pain in the butt. Here's another one on CNN from John M16 says, I think Tim Pool pointed out they only had 10,000 daily users, which is what we saw earlier. And that much smaller Daily Wire had 600,000 subscribers without the large marketing budget that CNN has. Yeah. Tim Pool's show is way bigger than CNN Plus. Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt. I mean, he gets like 40,000 people on his live shows, doesn't he? He gets a huge audience on his live shows every night, which was, I think, the entirety of what CNN Plus was getting. What, 10,000 views? It's not good. Not too good at all, which leads you to believe and ask the question, what would people be watching if CNN wasn't on sort of cable? Like, would they, if it wasn't on cable and people just didn't already have it in their homes, would people go out and actively get it? No, obviously they wouldn't. They didn't for CNN Plus. Let's jump over to YouTube. We've got some member comments. We've got Bonnie Specs here, says, I finally found out how to become a member on my iPhone. Well, Bonnie, that is so sweet. Thanks for joining us over here too. Bonnie's over on Locals too, and on Telegram. And we love Bonnie. I don't know, Bonnie gets the best stories. I don't know where she's constantly sort of at the forefront of the knowledge out there, but I love it. Lisa Lewis is here. Thanks for joining, Bonnie. It's good to see you over here too. Lisa Lewis says, I just started watching your channel and I'm glad because there's not many out there I trust, but I do trust you and your information. Thank you. You're funny too. Well, thank you, Lisa Lewis. We like to have fun here. There's a lot of funny, ridiculous things going on. I'm glad that we can talk about some of the serious issues look at the actual documents, dissect what's going on, and have a little fun too. I'm glad that you're here. Mr. J-Bug says he's also here enjoying the show. And so that's coming over from YouTube members. Thank you, YouTube members, for your support here, whether it's on YouTube or on Locals. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot, goes a long way, and I'm grateful for it. And so that, my friends, is it for the headlines of the day. And it's the end of the week, but we'll typically do some headlines over the weekends as well. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. There's a red button down there. Give it a big juicy click either with your mouse or your thumb or your nose, whatever, and make sure that you're here tomorrow because I look forward to seeing you on the next one.